Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. So my buddies at AIIZ have been doing all these little tier lists for various pieces of software. Favorite amp sims, favorite drum library, favorite bass amps, all that stuff. I figured I'd jump in with one they've not done and probably won't do. The best synths. Now, because the tier list is really just an opinion bracket, I've decided that my personal standards for this are going to be what I use daily, often, sometimes, rarely, never, and then a kind of would use it more if, which is a kind of fancy way of saying it's complicated. I have also built this tier list out of a collection of synthesizers I already have and have installed, ones that are actually in my collection. It didn't really make sense to mess around with ones that I don't really have enough experience with to make that kind of call on, and that's why you're not seeing Omnisphere or Silent or Delay Llama. A lot of those might not even work on my system, so I'm just using ones that I already have. Alright, starting off here with Absynth. I think that's going to go into rarely. Thinking about it, I don't feel like it comes up that often. It's kind of like, it's a decent one. It just, I got ones that I use more. You're also quickly going to start seeing my workflow and style preference as this comes together. Alchemy. This is going to be the first in the category of would use more if. Man, Alchemy. Oh boy. Alchemy, I have a love-hate relationship with. It's just this, like, it's really good. It's really powerful. It has everything you could imagine, except for a wavetable. Honestly, kind of. It's a bit dated. The workflow feels really backwards. I have a difficult time using it and have a difficult time getting any sounds I like out of it. But it's also just really powerful. It's a great synth. I just wish they rebuilt it, honestly. So I'd probably use it all the time if they made it more user-friendly and also added kind of a better, easy wavetable function, I think. But at the same time, I mean, if you're in Logic, you can do just about anything you can imagine with this. I mean, it's got granular, it's got spectral, it's got an image, which I think really only exists in the same way on probably Harmor, which is another one that won't make the list because I don't have that one. But boy, Alchemy, it could be so much more. Next, Anna 2. That's going to be another one for rarely. That one's one of those ones, it, for a lot of people, comes with the Slate bundle. It's a pretty basic one. It's a good synth. It just, with the ones I have, it's not really providing much that I don't already have in synthesizers I use more often. But I have kind of got it mostly for True North Audio, because I was thinking maybe I don't know, maybe I'll make some presets for it for the Slate people. There's a lot of people on the Slate subscription, a lot of people who already have it, so for a lot of people, I think it's probably their go-to synthesizer. I know for Toby at AIIZ, that was his for a while. I mean, he probably only has like 3 of them, so having presets for that's probably good. BX Oberhausen. I'm hesitant. I don't know if I should put this in rarely or never, because I've not really played around with it a whole lot. It's one of those ones that came free. I don't know if it's still free or if it was just free temporarily. I'm gonna put it in never. It's kind of one of those. It's a good synth, especially for free. But again, kind of like Anna 2, it falls into that category of I've got so many synths, as you can probably tell just by this bar, and there's even ones that didn't make the list, like Kilohertz one doesn't work for me right now, so that's not on the list, and so on. So yeah, I got a few on here that I'm not really using a whole lot. Dexxed. I'm gonna put that in rarely. It's close to never, as again I have other options. It's kind of so this is a free one. It's actually a free one I recommend to anybody. It's a great FM synth, but kind of built on the the DX7. It's basically sort of a free digital DX7, and it's a really cool one. But I have FM8, I have Phaseplant, I have the DX7 in the V collection. It's not one that gets a lot of use, but it's one I had gotten originally just to kind of check out. I think I'm gonna move that down to never. It's probably watching this like why you have ones you never use on this list, and why do you have them installed? It's one of those things where I have a tendency to hoard plugins. If it's free, I'll check it out to see if it's really good, so I can recommend it to people who are on a budget or just looking for more sounds. And B, I kind of find that it helps with that gear acquisition syndrome. That need to buy plugins. I find if I have so many that it's inconvenient to even handle or deal with them and find them outside of the ones in my favorites, I tend to find that makes me think a little bit more critically about whether or not I actually need it. So there's a few of them that are going to kind of fall into that never category that I picked up somewhere. You'll notice so far they're all free ones. Never so far is just free synthesizers. So I don't know. I've just not deleted them yet, or maybe I figured I might need to use them. Maybe I'll do a video on it later at some point. I've kind of thought about what the ones I like, I tend to keep sometimes just because it is fun, or I don't know, maybe someone I know is using it and could use a little advice, and I can kind of pull it up and play with it and see if I can figure out what they're trying to figure out. This one is going to go into rarely. It's not a never, so this is FabFilter One, not to be mistaken for Kilohertz One. It's a basic one. It's just really small, really simple. It's kind of one of those just pull it out real fast when you need to get a quick sound. It's got a very analog kind of workflow. I think the thing I find is it's limited, so it's not going to come out often for the limitation. But it does have FabFilter's kind of really clean, pleasant, easy to use interface. I ended up just buying FabFilter everything at some point last year as a just one of those things. Like, got a good deal on it based on plugins I already owned from them, and so I figured I'd just grab the whole lot of them. So I kind of just got it through that more than anything. I'm not 100% certain I would recommend it on its own. But the thing that I can say for it, besides the simplicity of it, is that it does sound really good. And that's kind of, if I'm going for it, I'm going for it because I like the sound. All right, we'll get to FM8. I'm going to put this into sometimes. It definitely gets more than rare use, but it's not quite at often or all the time. It's not a daily one for me. I like the sound of it. I find the workflow a little clunky, personally, and I still kind of prefer like VCV or Phaseplant if I'm doing FM, but it just sounds good. It's a really good one to pull out. So if I'm just going for like really hard FM, I'll definitely reach for it. I mean, I bought just the Native Instruments Just Everything bundle, so it's kind of one of those, I have it and a lot of the other Native ones because I just have everything they've made. So it's kind of one of those where I don't necessarily have it because I sought it out as my go-to FM synthesizer. I just happened to already have it based on the other things that I'd purchased, but I think it's a really good one and I would absolutely recommend it. Though with pretty much anything, if you can swing it, I would recommend just buying the whole package. But obviously, a lot of people don't have that kind of money. And I mean, I only happened to have it at the time. I occasionally am able to upgrade, but I tend to go like 2 or 3 versions between. All right, let's go to Helm. This one's gonna get a rarely too. This is another free one. I like this one. I like the workflow. I like the UI. I like the sound of it. This is a fun one too. This is if you know Vital, then you'll probably know Matt Title, the guy who made Vital. This is one of his other ones. I think it actually might be the only other one. I could be wrong, but I think this one predates Vital. I think this was kind of his original foray, and it's got a little bit more of that like analog digital. I'm not sure how to describe it. It's the kind of workflow that you have in older synthesizers, like older soft synths, that's got that like slightly more analog mindset, but it's not analog. You know, you're not going to see an actual synthesizer laid out like that, but it doesn't quite have the modern workflow like, you know, your Serum or your Phaseplant or something. But I do find it very easy to use, and honestly, while Vital is definitely going to be higher on the list for me, like Vital, it's free. You know, I mean, give it a try. Maybe download. It's one of those cases where worst comes to worst. You know, it's not going to hurt. You know, just delete it if you don't need it. But I find that I enjoy working with it every once in a long while, and I'll probably do a video on it as well, or maybe just a video on like free soft synths. Who knows? Maybe I'll do a soft synths tier list. All right, Hive. Okay, this one's going to go into the sometimes category for the moment. This is actually a very recent acquisition for me, so I've not used it enough to have a hard placement for it yet. So I'm still trying to kind of get used to the workflow for one. It feels a little different for me. I have another synth that kind of has a similar workflow. It's not too difficult to pick up, but it's definitely a little odd for me. But I mean, that's also just, again, you're going to pick up on my kind of workflow preference pretty quickly anyway. I think that overall, though, it's really solid. It feels like it's built very much to kind of work nicely with that. Again, there's a slightly analog mindset to it, but it's definitely more modern feeling. There are things about it that remind me a little bit of Alchemy, and I think if you like Alchemy and you're not a Logic user, you might enjoy Hive. Either way, I don't have my like full assessment in. I still need a little bit more time with it, so it's getting into sometimes at the moment just because I haven't had the opportunity to figure out if it's going to be a daily or if it's going to fall down or up the list somewhere. But that's where it's at right now. I'll get back to you on that sometime later. But I do enjoy it so far. Jumping in, ImPerfect. Ooh. It's not going to be Nevers. I do use it. Yeah, so I guess another rarely. I got this one on a deal. I don't remember what the deal was. It was just really cheap, and it was kind of one of those where I hadn't heard of it, and I thought I'd check it out. This is a good one. I enjoy this one a lot, but again, this one kind of falls into that category of I have other ones I already use, so it's not really replacing anything. It's not improved any of my workflows a lot, but I can definitely see a lot of people enjoying it. And I mean, the money I spent on it, I'm not sure off the top of my head what the current price is, but I mean, it felt worth the money to me. And I think if you're starting off, or, you know, finding that maybe you don't like some of the other more modern synths, or, I mean, one of the things about this one, it's got kind of a vector-based synthesis kind of workflow, which is definitely not something you see very often. And I think that alone is probably something that can really drive it as an option for people, as I feel like if you're a Vector fan, and I know you're out there, you'd probably like it, and you probably don't have many other options anyway. So I think that'll probably win points for people with a certain workflow. It just isn't making it into my workflow enough. Iris, oh boy, that's put it rarely or sometimes. I think I'm gonna put it in sometimes. It is actually rare. It's a rarely thing, but it's not because it's not a good synth or anything, or not because it's a synth that I tend to reach for something else more often, but more that it's a very specialized synth, being kind of a like spectral editing, kind of like it's almost like somebody turned the RX engine into an oscillator, like, or sample engine, which is kind of a way to put it. It's specialized enough that it's very rare that it's something I'm going to reach for, but I'm going to reach for it usually when I'm trying to get that kind of something, when I want something different from what I'm doing. So I'm going to put it into the sometimes, even though it's a rarely, because the rarely condition is not whether or not other things beat it out. It's more of a whether or not it is the synth for any job I'm doing. But it is really cool and also free, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I got it for free, but I think it is just free. So check it out. I mean, again, can't hurt. All right, this is going to be a hard never. That's going to be a real quick one. That is like EFM, I think is what it's called, or something like that. This is actually one of a couple that's going to be in a category of single synth representing a collection of synths. This is the Logic like stock collection, excluding Alchemy's that kind of stands alone. So like the Logic, man, what am I thinking? There's like I want to say it's like the ES series or something like that. Just like really basic ones that are super old and kind of dated. And there's the vintage one, and there's I don't even remember what the other one is called. I think it's called Scanner. Anyway, I'm not using the stock ones. I got so many options, even for free. It just, but it's stock, There's nothing really to think too much into with that one. It is what it is, I mean, I don't think many people are using the stock ones unless you're in... Probably... Yeah, I don't think anyone's using the stock ones unless you're in FL, usually. I mean, some people use the ones in Ableton and stuff, but I feel like Harmer is probably the only other stock one besides Alchemy that tends to make lists like this for people. Oh boy, Massive X. Oh, this is going to be a controversial one. That gets an often. I don't hate Massive X as much as a lot of people do. I know that's going to be controversial. A lot of people do not like Massive X. A lot of people prefer the original, and I usually do as well, but I don't hate Massive X. I'm not gonna lie, I like Massive X enough. I use it pretty often. Not quite daily, but I mean, I don't know. I like the workflow, I like the features, I don't find it too bad. We're gonna put Massive up there as well. I'm gonna put it in front because it does come up more often than Massive X for me. I think man, as much as I love Massive, it sounds... Well, Massive. I mean, Massive was one of the first synths I got, like one of the first real ones, besides like stock ones and whatever. It's kind of one of the ones that like made me start liking synthesis. But, I don't know. I don't like the workflow that much, and I don't like that I can't really change the wavetables. It's, I can't quite put it into I'd use it more if, but I do use it pretty often. I do like it, but... I don't know. The workflow is, it's what keeps it from daily, honestly. Alright, here's one that, kind of shouldn't have been on the list. Odin 2. And I believe it's a Wave Warden. It's another free one. It's actually a pretty good one, but I recently went through a plugin purge, and this was one of the ones I decided I wasn't going to keep among many others, like the full bucket music ones and stuff like that, which are just fine, but I mean, it was just like free ones that I have other options for. The reason this one made it somewhat accidentally is that instead of deleting Odin 2, the soft synth from, again, I believe it was Wave Warden, I accidentally deleted Odin 2 from Solemn Tones, the definitely not free guitar virtual instrument. So it's still there. I reinstalled the other Odin 2s, and I have two of them again, two Odin 2s, but it accidentally survived a purge because there was another plugin with the same name, and I decided I'd give it the chance to put it on this list anyway, since it's still there, and I mean, might as well make some more people aware of it. Again, it's a free one. It doesn't get the never because it's not good, it just gets a never because I have a big enough collection. It's not doing anything I need anyway. But you might like it. Pendulate. That's going to be another sometimes. It's, again, it's not doing anything super that I can't do anywhere else, but I do find that it kind of feels unique to work with. And also, I'm definitely a fan of these guys. The Newfangled Audio, these guys are pretty cool. They've got a lot of really good, really useful plugins. They definitely have some of my favorite mastering plugins. So again, this is another, I'm pretty sure this was free, or if it wasn't free, it was really cheap when I got it. But I'm pretty sure you can just download this from them or from some other site. It's a good one. It's a fun one to work with. It's got a pretty unique UI too. I feel like you can definitely get some kind of fun, wacky sounds out of it. Oh boy, here we are right now. Oh, so you're probably, by the way, looking at this one, thinking, that doesn't look quite familiar. So some of these, I screen capped all these just out of my own collection, just because it made it easy to collect the images for the list, to collect the ones that are going to be like the ones I know are mine, the ones I know I have, and it also made it easier to just kind of categorize. This is one of the ones I have like a custom skin or color scheme or whatever on. Phaseplant. Phaseplant is S tier. Absolute favorite. Daily. And I mean, when I say daily, I think I might use Vital more just because Vital is faster. But, I mean, Phaseplant is the unchallenged S tier best synth. It is always my first recommendation. I love the workflow. I love the sound. I love working in it. I love how deep you can get with it. I love the kind of combination of like modular, modern. There's basically nothing quite like it. Unchallenged, for sure. Oh, hey, look, it's Pigments. This one does well whenever it comes up on either one of my channels. On this one, it's the only video right now, and for the only video, it's up over 1,000 views. And did a patch video on True North Audio, and that one did really well. People really like their Pigments, and I think, honestly, Pigments is up there. It's not quite daily for me. Man, I need like a often almost daily category. Almost, I feel like it's definitely not quite there, but it is so close. It is a really good one. I love Pigments. I think Pigments has a great workflow. The new update is fantastic. If you want to know more about my opinion on Pigments, I mean, the last video on Pigments is a pretty good idea of how I feel about it. Definitely nearly daily use, but not quite. So it goes on the A, basically the A category. Reaktor. Okay, I think that's going to go in a would use more if. Reaktor is a really good one. It is a really fun sounding plugin. It is super powerful. It's another one of those ones. I think that so far both of the would use more if fit into the category of they can do a lot of things. They are in some ways kind of their own version of the everything plugin. I think for me though, it gets into, it's a little bit dense for me sometimes. But it's also one of those, every time I open it and play with it, I definitely ask myself why I don't use it more. Because I always enjoy using it whenever I do. So it's one of those that it's complicated ones. Honestly, I think it's probably my favorite native instruments behind Massive, not counting Contact. That's the other thing. I don't have any of the samplers or vocoders or stuff on here. I kind of figured those are a different category of plugin. But yeah, I think outside of those, I think when you're counting the synths, in the native instruments. I think it, even if it's not the second most used, it's probably my second favorite. It has a lot of options. You can do a lot with it. Alright, Serum. Yeah, I'm basic. I know. I think a lot of people could have predicted that one. I think a lot of people would also put Serum up there. Daily. I mean, again, it's funny because it's I said again, I think in my Pigments video, was like every time new similar kind of modern workflow synth comes out, and usually it's a wavetable, someone's like, oh man, is it the Serum killer? Because it really is kind of the industry standard. But I mean, it's a standard because it's good. But that doesn't mean it's my favorite. Honestly, it has limitations I don't like as much too. I mean, none of them are a deal breaker. You know, it's still daily use, but I don't know. I do find it a little more limited compared to some of the... I think a lot of guys have seen what's good about it and seen what's limited about it and specifically kind of address those things. But I don't think anything's going to be the Serum killer until something comes along that completely reinvents the way we interact with synthesis. I think it's going to remain an industry standard, and I think part of that is also just the rent-to-own option. A lot of others have that as well, but I mean, it's easy to get into, it's super easy to learn. And honestly, I'm one of the people in the category, like, I knew synthesis before Serum, but honestly, it's laid out in such a simple way that it's kind of the one that taught me synthesis. It was the one that really made me understand how a synthesizer worked more than Massive, and I think, you know, again, the workflow is just a bit more intuitive to me, which is why it's on daily and Massive isn't. Even though Massive is my first and kind of the one that made me want to make synth music or just play with synthesis, Serum is the one that made it click. So yeah, Serum, easy S tier. You're probably picking up a pattern on the S tier. The workflow is pretty clear. I think you can probably figure out maybe another one that's going to go on there pretty easily. Super 8. That's going to be a never. Pretty quick. I don't use it. I don't know. It doesn't really have anything that makes it like super stand out or anything. I don't think it's even really... it's an older one for one, and it's another one of those that just came with everything native instruments, so it's kind of a... I think even the people who are using just native instrument stuff don't really reach for it very often. I think it just, you know, it's been replaced by more. Not much to say about it. I already had it because I had it as part of something else I had. Not bad, but I mean, I got more I'm going to reach for first. Syntronik. That's going to go into the never as well. That was another free one. This is from the IK Multimedia. I don't find myself digging into it very often. I downloaded it just to check it out, see if it's any good, and it does sound good. It's not bad or anything. And again, like, you get from the free version, you get a lot of kind of usable sound, a lot of kind of fun basic stuff. It's got some really good like acid bass in the free version. So if you're a fan of acid house, you make that like acid house kind of style, might be a good one to grab just for that. Again, being free, pretty straightforward. But the reason I don't use it as often is I find the user interface slightly busy sometimes, if that makes any sense, compared to like the V collection. But the other thing that's a real deal breaker for me is it's just so microtransaction-y, and it just, oh man, I don't like using software where you've got this little man, I don't like using software you've got like a module store in the plugin, you know, or where you look at something or you think, oh man, this would be cool to get more of or something else from, and it's like, oh yeah, you have to buy that, you know. And it's, I get the model, but I don't like it. I don't like it. It's a deal breaker. I think if it was less microtransaction-y, I'd probably use it a little more, or at least recommend it a little more. Again, though, for a lot of the stuff that comes with it, I find myself using V Collection more often. Twin Two. It's gonna be a sometimes. It's on the lower end of sometimes, but it's a good synth. It's another one again. I just got the FabFilter everything. It's funny. I like this synth. I like the UI. I like the kind of workflow. It's very basic. It's very straightforward. What's kind of funny is I feel like it's not as clean as a lot of the other FabFilter stuff in the collection. Like, it's perfectly good. It's a lot cleaner than most other synths. I think it just... I think it might just be the FabFilter bias. I think that I'm so used to how really simple a lot of other stuff is that when I look at this, it feels busier than I'm used to from FabFilter. But yeah, I don't know. I can't say that's really a huge mark against it. I think the big thing for me, the ultimate reason that it's only a sometimes and not more often, is honestly just more that I have so many synths, and again, it's one that I got getting everything else. That being said, I would recommend this more. I think this is a fun... If you like that more kind of analog workflow with the modern features and a little bit kind of a modern like mentality, or if you're just a fan of the way FabFilter does stuff, because it's one of the things that it's kind of really... one of the things that's kind of really strong about it, I would definitely recommend it. It has the XY pad. So again, this is, if you're somebody who's into the vector synthesis, this might be one of the, like, real options for you. If you like to work with that kind of vector XY, modulation. This one might be the synth to grab for that. But it's definitely laid out with a little bit more of an analog kind of, feature set. Alright, Triple Cheese. Now, this is another going to be category. Triple Cheese is actually going to be representing the like UHE free synth collection. They have 3 or 4 of them, I want to say. It's like this one and Zebralet and... Oh, there's another one whose name I'm forgetting. This one gets a rarely for me because of all the ones I have. But these are really solid free synths and definitely on that kind of list of... if you're looking for free synths, if you're trying to fill out your collection and figure out your workflow, or even just want something that sounds really good and don't have much of a budget, I definitely recommend these. And often that's going to be the CS80V, once again a category representation. This is more than just the CS80V, this is the V collection. This is going to be, I just kind of chose it arbitrarily, but V collection Arturia, fantastic. I love the sounds. I love the... I mean, you get so many options. Almost overwhelming how many options you get for the price. It's another one you can rent to own, which is really cool. I think Arturia makes some really, really, really fantastic synths. This is one I recommend to anybody who finds himself really liking the analog workflow and maybe can't afford analog. I've heard some people say it's like, X doesn't... whatever V doesn't sound like the real thing. It's like, I mean, if you've seen the cost of the collection of synthesizers in the V collection, the real deal ones, you would understand why it's a steal. It's okay if it's only 80% as good or whatever sometimes, because there is stuff in here that is, I think it was 200 or 400 for the whole collection. And there are synthesizers in here you'd be paying easily 6 figures for if you wanted to buy them yourself. The actual analog versions. And I think in some cases there are instruments in here that also firmly fit into that category of, even if you can find it and you have $150,000 to spend on it, you're not going to find it. They're not for sale very often. So, yeah, I mean, it's a steal. It's a steal. The only reason it's not a daily for me is just because I tend to prefer the modern workflow over the analog one. That's pretty much it. Bam, there's another daily. We got VCV Rack. This is the exception for me for the analog workflow. This one, boy, it is probably the soft synth that requires the most technical knowledge It is, all of these ones, it is the one that would probably have the longest course on how to use it. But the thing is, A, it's free, which is incredible. The feature set for the cost is unreal. The other thing about it is that not only is it free, but if you pair it with Cardinal, and you got $30 to spend on the host module set, you have basically broken the matrix. I mean, with those two things, you have a synthesizer that is basically capable of being anything. And this is where this ends up on the daily versus the other everything synths and the, complicated would use more if category, is that there's a lot of extra things you can do with it that the others can't, like wavetables, for example, or even just the fact that it is very easy to build. The other thing is that it's got so many modules from other makers. You've got kind of the standout star child kind of mod, like you got the Audible Instruments, or you've got the Surge XT, the old Surge XT synthesizer is now available, full feature set as modules. You have Volt Audio or Bog Audio that have tons and tons of stuff. It's amazing. Again, pair it with $30 host module and then get Cardinal to load it into your DAW, and you've got a synthesizer that's completely OP. The only reason that it is not my absolute favorite must go to is that while it is at that point basically unchallenged, it is definitely the really, really slow workflow. It's not always practical. But it is the one I can turn to when I know that I need a sound and nothing else will do. Alright, wrapping up the daily, we got Vital. Like I said, Vital is very feature-rich. Vital is free. I actually own it, but you don't have to pay for it unless you want to. I would. I mean, I think Matt Teitel did an amazing job and deserves the support, so I gave him my money. But, I mean, easily recommendation. This is, I think I reach for this more than Serum these days, maybe? I have to think about it. It and Serum are both very quick, but going back to what I had said earlier about how a lot of guys are kind of seeing what Serum is limited at and addressing those things, this one has more LFOs, more envelopes. You can kind of keep adding up to a certain point. It has 3 oscillators instead of the 2, plus the noise oscillator. The 2 filters is really amazing. It's the one most people definitely refer to when you hear the Serum killer, and it's probably the one that has taken the biggest chunk out of Serum's market share. But I mean, I don't think it's replacing Serum. I feel like Serum does it handles low end better. There's something about the low end in Serum that feels richer, if that's the right word for it. But I mean, overall, there's no reason not to get Vital. It's free, it sounds cool, super powerful, great workflow. I mean, honestly, it's a no-brainer. Voltage Modular, that's gonna get... Oh, that teeters on rarely and never. I'm gonna put it on rarely because I do actually use it sometimes compared to not at all. But it's... I mean, I have VCV Rack for that workflow. I do find it a little bit more easy to work with than VCV sometimes. But I find it much more limited. VCV has that whole, open source community, so there's a lot more options for it. And then, man, again, I hate that microtransaction-y feeling. And honestly, this is another one of those ones that kind of feels like it makes you... it kind of feels like it wants you to spend money on lots of little pieces, one at a time. And I just... man, when you got VCV Rack, which... I mean, the thing is, VCV Rack has lots of, for-profit lots of paid-for modules, but it doesn't feel microtransaction-y. And I mean, I've only paid for one module in VCV Rack, And let me tell you, I have like 3,000 modules in my collection because there's so much like free stuff. I mean, I think if they had, I think if they had more of a collection, maybe it would do it for me. It's at the very least I can give them this. They have a community of developers at least. I don't know if it's open source entirely, but at the very least, like, there are people other than Voltage Modular making modules for it. It just doesn't feel the same quite to me for VCV Rack, but I still recommend it. As I remember, Voltage Modular itself is free, and for that reason, I would recommend. So, I mean, it's one of those, like, it just, I don't know, it's not VCV Rack for me, but it's not bad. It just kind of, it doesn't feel as good to use for me personally. But I do know that, like I said, it's a community of people making these sort of modules and stuff. In fact, I think there's even a handful of modules that are made for it by people who also make some of the really good ones in VCV Rack. So, I mean, it's worth getting. It's worth a grab. And that's why it does get some use. If you want a more straightforward, less overwhelming VCV Rack, that honestly might be the real kind of recommendation for me. Finally, we have Wiggle. This one teeters on sometimes and rarely. I think I'm going to put it more into rarely. This is a pretty decent one. This one kind of feels like it has the same workflow to me as Hive. It feels like it's a very similar kind of thing. It feels like it's going for the same type of like feeling, the same type of workflow. And it's definitely a lot cheaper, as I remember. Again, I'm not sure if it had a promotional deal, or if the amount I spent on it was the regular amount. But I think I spent $20 on this one. And I mean, for $20, it's a good one. It's another one of those ones where I saw it and I thought I'd give it a chance, and I found that I liked it. But again, it just kind of, it's not getting as much use compared to, you know, my daily drivers or my often used kind of synthesizers. And part of that is just, I think part of it's workflow, part of it's features, and part of it is just the sheer number of other options I have. But it's not a never. It does come out sometimes. Well, that is that. That is a kind of probably not a short video of me waffling on about the kind of my opinions of these various synths, or at least quickly my opinions of these various synths. If you have any recommendations, drop them below. I'm always happy to try some new ones. If you disagree, then by all means, you can pull one up, make your own, or even try to copy mine. I think mine will be available on the tier list maker. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if this is searchable in public or if this is just for me and I would have to make it public. But if it is, if it's there, you can probably find it and try it for yourself. I recommend doing what I did and just kind of putting ones you actually own on it. But everyone's going to have kind of different preferences. I know a lot of people are going to probably put Pigments in the daily. A lot of people are probably going to really hate the Massive X is that high. I don't know. Maybe somebody would swap VCV and Voltage Modular. Hard to say. Regardless, hope you guys had fun. Feel free to like, subscribe, watch the other videos. Go check out my buddies at AIIZ, see what they think of different drum libraries and amp sims. And until next time, signing off.